All right, welcome back, everyone. So we've got another classic modern showdown here for you. We've got Brent Rogers on Mardu Pyromancer and Jarod Willier on Jeskai Control. And classic turn 1 Thoughtseize off of a beautiful swamp. And we'll see what he picks.
Looks like they both kept hands 7. Brent selected the Detention Sphere first off. Jarod just having a handful of removal, plus a search for Escanta, I would imagine. Checklist card, don't always know, but I would suspect in Jeskai Control for it to be a search for
Especially that
Escanta.
looks like a Ixalan checklist card. However,
it does.
Flip Avacyn might be some spice out of a blue-white control deck, you could see.
I was thinking more of Flip Jace from Origins.
Flip Jace from Origins, also some spice.
But, you know, not definitely neither of which would you expect.
All right, it does look like it was the search here. However, he could have drawn it for turn. We don't know.
Well, it looks like Brent's looking at a Blood Moon next turn, possibly. Holding a push in his hand, Kolaghan's Command, a couple lands.
That Blood Moon would be pretty strong against Jarod, who is going to rely on that blue, especially if he's got stuff like Cryptic Command or his sweepers are going to be Supreme Verdicts.
If Jarod's playing anything like a stock list, the Jeskai Control decks typically only run 1 Plains, so it is very good for him to have that 1 Plains. However, like you said, he won't be able to cast a lot of his blue spells unless he ends up fetching a blue before this Blood Moon comes down or happens to just naturally draw one. Escanta will help him get there.
Absolutely.
But having Escanta turn into another mountain is not exactly what you want.
Nope, not quite.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just sits there and lets it act as a scry every turn and not worry about transitioning it unless he gets an answer for the Blood Moon.
Mm-hmm. Brent kind of wavering between a swamp and realizing he needs a mountain here to cast his Blood Moon. But oh, looks like he has the Blackcleave Cliffs.
Now he has a lot of mountains.
A lot of mountains, no plains. I guess he drew the cliffs for turn, unfortunately. I guess he realized he needed the red to cast his Blood Moon at first.
He does still have a plains in hand, so he has access to all of his colors.
Definitely plan A coming together. Ooh, that's a spicy Gearhulk standard all-star there. I'm a fan of Gearhulk.
You do see that torrential Gearhulk pop up every once in a while.
Maybe it was like a one-of, you know, feeling it out. It's like those Titans, just have a bunch of mana and control decks, and sometimes you can get that through.
If you run into, or expect to run into, a good number of control mirrors, having win cons that can clock quickly are important. Typically, they just have the Burnout Plan and the Colonnade as their main ways.
Colonnade's not going to do too much with that Blood Moon in play.
I believe chat was asking why the Colonnade came in untapped, and Brent was reminding them that it is a mountain.
It is a mountain, so it will come into play as a mountain, and therefore mountains come into play untapped. That is a recent rules change that they made here.
Wouldn't be surprised to see Brent flash this back unless he's worried about something and wants to fire off this brutality. Considering Jarod has no blue mana, I don't think that he needs to have that kind of urgency. I would likely lean towards getting the Lingering Souls out. No escalation, just looking for the hand.
We got a quick Lightning Helix in response.
Not clear on what the target was. Do you think he's going to try to pick off a token or just do some damage to Brent?
Well, he does have the option to Lightning Bolt the other token. However, it looks like he's just going straight to the face. Maybe on the burn plan with all those mountains.
So this will take Brent down to 11. And left in hand is Wrath of God and a Path of Exile.
A beautiful Wrath of God. However, not too helpful here with only 1 plains.
I think I, again, would have disagreed with Brent and taken the Path, since likely Jarod only has 1 plains in his deck, likely cannot cast that Wrath. But if he is playing main deck Wrath of God, he may actually have more than one planes.
That's true. Not that he has any easy fetch lands to find that one planes. He does still have to draw it.
Yeah, he would have to naturally just draw his second planes. So I think I would have leaned taking the path, and I actually would have held off on the Collective Brutality until I saw maybe a blue source or that second white source if it exists.
He did create an opening for himself now. He knows that his opponent has a path to exile, but he can resolve some non-creature spells here for certain.
Looks like he's got a Bedlam Reveler, double Kolaghan's Command, a redundant Blood Moon, and a Fatal Push. So, not really what he's looking for entirely, though he can just start firing off the Kolaghan's Commands, doing 2 damage, making Jarod discard.
Tax on the resources, which from a control deck that just wants to play everything in the grip, you know, that is really a 2-for-1 for them because losing cards is huge in this matchup.
Uncastable, right, to put that in the graveyard with your Azcanta. Still waiting for Brent to flash this Lingering Souls back.
Really making sure that he's going to get it through.
Get that path. Can't take the Jace, and Jace is ways off of being able to come down anyway. Yeah,
Jace is fairly good against Lingering Souls, but, you know, definitely miles from being able to cast it here.
He is also uncastable for a while, so I don't think you really want to hold off K command and do 2 damage to make him discard because it's an easy discard. If that Lingering Souls would have been flashed back 2 turns ago, that's an extra 4 damage, and then 4 damage over the next 2 turns, plus a K command for 2 would be a 2-turn clock.
Yeah.
Brent maybe has another plan.
Oh, we had no black mana. We had a quick rewind there. Blood Moon is a dual-sided effect. It affects all non-basic lands, not just your opponent's.
Already edging too good. Definitely would be too good if it only affected your opponents.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a must-include in every red deck.
Come on, Brent. Flash it back. I think Brent is prioritizing getting his hand emptied while being efficient so that when he draws his 5th land, he can get this Bedlam Reveler down, but he has enough instants to reduce it. It should really be castable for 2 already, wouldn't you think?
Let's see, do a quick count here.
2 Kolaghan's Commands, a Collective Brutality, a Lingering Souls, and a Thoughtseize is 5.
Thoughtseize, yeah, that's 5. This Inquisition here is going to be mana neutral with this Bedlam Reveler.
I guess he just values his cards in his hand and doesn't want to discard them. But a redundant Blood Moon and a Fatal Push, I think you got to fire this off. You got to commit more to the board, putting yourself low enough that Jarod's got a chance.
Especially, Jarod has to draw out of this Blood Moon, and so you have a limited clock as opposed to infinite amount of time. So putting that pressure on what might have been the route that I would have taken.
Well, there's
interesting
island he wanted. Too much for Jarod.
Yep. I am very curious if he has that second planes in there for the Wrath of God.
I would expect he does. Maybe we'll find out.
You know, not too many answers to Blood Moon in the main deck, but I'm sure he's definitely got something in the sideboard that'll help clear that up for white, assumingly, with that planes.
Typically, you see some wear and tears in the sideboard of Jeskai Control. Main deck, their main answer is Cryptic. So you Cryptic bounce it, and then have access to all of your mana, and then have access to your search for Azcanta if you choose to flip it or have it flipped. Just, that's not easy to do.
Right.
Especially when you have no blue. Right.
Having played Grixis Control for quite a while, I've done that maybe in 2 games where I've had a Blood Moon and 3 islands, and I was still able to Cryptic Command through it. So it can come up, but it is very rare.
You definitely have to be aggressive in fetching your basics when you see that you're playing against a Blood Moon deck. And I wouldn't expect Brent to sideboard them out because of how strong they are against Azcanta and against the Jeskai mana base in general.
Yeah, and when you're trying to kill people with your man lands, just nuking those man lands with the Blood Moon is always been great. Even if Jarod has the colors to cast his spells, it takes out one of his win conditions.
I would expect Jarod to diversify a bit post board. I wouldn't be that surprised if he had, like, say, a Secure the Waste main board, and maybe that's what he was hoping to draw for a while, main deck, to get the Secure the Waste, because that would have been relatively good in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did have the 1 plains in play.
Mr. Rogers was only at 11, and so with that much mana, if you're casting that, that's a 2-turn clock, I believe. He had enough lands to produce enough 1/1s.
Yeah, and he ended up drawing a Lightning Bolt to put Brent to 8, and since Brent was playing conservatively, trying to pick off the hand and use all the resources that he had before committing to the Bedlam Reveler, then he was giving Jarod some time.
Any sideboard cards you think Brent's going to bring in here out of the board?
As far as Mardu's sideboard, they can vary quite a bit, but he does have access to things like Wear and Tear as well, if he's worried about that Detention Sphere that he took off the first Thoughtseize post board. If he's worried about having to fight through the Azcanta, he can answer it before it flips in that way. So he might be prized into bringing something like that in. Often you'll see those Ensnaring Bridges we were talking about in the sideboard of Mardu as well. Those not something he's looking for in this matchup. You also see them often have more Collective Brutalities, which
Discarders always traditionally good against control,
which is not too bad against Jeskai, but they're most often for the burn matchups. But you do, I guess, bring them in against control. Looks like Jarod was happy with his 7, and Brent went down to 6 in his keeping. Left it on top. Looked like it may have been a bolt.
Good bolt on top, and he has the signature Pyromancer in hand. So we'll see if we can get kind of a more token aggro strategy than a prison one this time around.
We had a Serum Visions for Jarod Willier. Drew 1, bought them both. Electrolyzed, Detention Sphere, and lands.
Both of those cards, both Detention Sphere and Electrolyze, are very powerful in this matchup, so I can understand the begrudging keep on the lands and 2 spells, but we'll see if Brent has the double discard here, which could be brutal for Jarod if that draw was another land.
These post-board matchups against Mardu Pyromancer can definitely get very grindy. And keeping a hand full of lands plus 2 answers to Brent's first couple threats has a little bit of insulation against the hand disruption, which we saw already. But he is going to be weak to a second threat if he doesn't actually get to answer this Pyromancer.
Right. I am surprised that Brent played it knowing he has the Electrolyze and an additional land. However, also interesting, Jarod did not get red mana. I don't know if he has a red source in hand or not.
Yeah, he fetched a basic with that Flooded Strand, and now, if he doesn't have another fetch that's hidden from us, he's not going to be able to cast that Electrolyze.
There's a fetch land.
That's an Arid Mesa.
I think you might also have a Sulphur Falls down there next to the Desperate Lighthouse, the Loot House.
Oh, that is a Sulphur Falls. Is it? Okay, yeah. You're right. So he did have access to red even without fetching.
He just apparently passed back the turn, giving Brent the opportunity to get a token here. I mean, I suppose he can get it with the Electrolyze, but...
Yeah, I guess he doesn't mind giving Brent the value having an elemental token stay in play.
So interesting, if Jarod has just a land in hand here, he could be trying to bait out another spell, another discard spell, hit both the token and the Pyromancer and just reveal a hand of lands. He does draw a card off his Electrolyze, so he might
could
put a
draw
spell
action.
there.
Yeah.
But
1/1 and draw.
and we've got
Celestial Purge and a Tormod's Crypt.
okay, so the Tormod's Crypt he wouldn't have been able to take with the brutality. So that's an interesting line. A backup Pyromancer.
Looks like Brent's a little short on lands, but that means his hand's full of action.
Yep, that third land would have been crucial there, getting able to just cast something, whether it's a lightning bolt or a discard spell.
Which he does have a lightning bolt.
To get that token right away. Looks like he's got those 1-mana spells he could have followed up with. But Tormod's Crypt is going to get cast, question mark, and maybe hit a Lingering Souls on the back end? I don't know.
I believe Jarod put it out last turn just to have it out there.
Slow down a Bedlam Reveler cast. Just getting the instant sorceries out of the graveyard. Pathing the Pyromancer there. Great draw.
Not the worst thing for Brent since he was short on land anyway, but you definitely don't want to let him untap with that unless you happen to have another Electrolyze, I guess.
Absolutely.
The thing about the Electrolyze play is that if Brent was playing with instants instead of, say, the sorcery of Collective Brutality, he could have responded by casting 2 spells and getting the additional elemental that would have stayed around.
It's true. If it was an Inquisition and he responded with a lightning bolt.
Right.
Right.
So Jarod did take a slight gamble in that, but he knew that he had an answer for the first token that was made.
Right. So Loot House is going to do a poor imitation of search, a flip search. But with all those lands in hand, it might actually pan out fairly well.
Looks like he definitely brought in more brutalities unless he's running more than normal main deck. And he's just draining because he has full hand knowledge. Jarod's well equipped to play through a Blood Moon. But Brent doesn't happen to have one right now.
He unfortunately drew yet another land. If Brent really boarded out his Blood Moons here, though, that Celestial Colonnade is going to be crashing in for, I think, possibly unanswerably with just that Lightning Bolt and, ooh, just going straight to the face with the Lightning Bolt.
Pretty aggressive.
Right. It does look like he has a Reveler in hand, so he's trying to build up to that, I understand, and then cast something else.
Picked up a second Reveler. So he has 3 instants and sorceries in his graveyard. Is that correct? Double Brutality and a Bolt, and then an Inquisition too. So that's 4.
Okay, yeah, so I think he has 4.
He's not going to be able to keep. Oh, in response to the fetch, Jarod got rid of Brent's graveyard.
Very well done.
Heads up play, expecting possibly a Reveler to come down.
Right.
Brent, I was going to say, is going to run into the issue of having to lose one of those Revelers eventually here.
They do not play well with each other.
They do not.
And he reveals, Detention Sphere. Another good answer for all those tokens, but unfortunately the discard spell is going to find its mark. And we got some Loot House action. Keeping it a mystery from us, keeping those cards face down.
Jarod's seeing a reasonable number of cards. Looks like he's coming in with the Colonnade.
Yep.
Puts Brent down to 13.
Brent's going to have to find a Fatal Push or a Terminate to answer that.
He drew his 5th land in Sacred Foundry.
And 2 Revelers. Does he have enough to cast Reveler here?
Justin, can we put Reveler up on the screen? I believe it costs 6 red. Reduce colorless or generic mana cost by 1 for each instant and sorcery. So it will cost him 7. He only has 5. So really needs to find some more spells.
Do speculation on the creature type for Bedlam Reveler?
Horror. I don't know
Horror?
what kind of horror, but I know it's a horror.
Okay. A devil horror. I was going to go with devil. Okay. So there we go. Our 3/4 8 drop.
Prowess.
It does have prowess. Good ability.
I did remember that it was a horror because it was relevant with Thing in the Ice flipping and not
It
bouncing the
is.
Reveler.
That is true.
Jarod bringing the unhinged and unstable lands. Looks like he's getting in for another 4 with the Colonnade. Should put Brent down to 9.
There we go. Faithless Looting is going to power
That
up
is
at least one of these.
Exactly what he wanted to see. He can discard the redundant Bedlam Reveler and likely cast another spell if he got one.
So he's got a
It's-
Marsh Flats and something else.
Possibly a Kolaghan's Command. Didn't get to see it completely.
Yeah, it looks like a Kolaghan's Command there.
So he hasn't land dropped for the turn. Looks like he's going to keep the K Command and 1 Bedlam Reveler.
Taking the Colonnade hit.
Still 2 turns left from that, him being at 5. So long as he doesn't have to fetch or Jarod doesn't have burn in his hand. But
Which it does look like Jarod does. We can see that Wrath of God, and then his last card is a Lightning Helix, which is pretty lethal here. Even if Brent gets like a Lingering Souls token out, those won't last him too long.
looks like Brent's best line here is Bolt, play Reveler. If he has, that'll be 3 to reduce it to 5. He still won't be able to cast it, I don't think. Unless he had another spell in his graveyard. The Kolaghan's Command.
The Kolaghan's Command, yeah. He played his land for turn, I want to say.
He didn't.
He
He's
did
still
not.
at 5.
Because he drew the Lightning Bolt.
He needs an untapped land and
tapped
he tapped land.
Those
Had that been
Blackcliff
an
Cliffs.
untapped land, he could have. He did draw a push.
Yep, the Lightning Helix will do
Oh,
it.
that push.
Yeah, seen Vincent Plains. Okay.
He had been
The
holding
mana
it up.
checks out.
Yep. That was close. Had that been an untapped land for Brent, could have pushed the Colonnade, lived, and maybe gotten a kill.
Absolutely. That was a very, very close match. We're heading into a game 3. It looks like Jared's going to make a few changes to the list. Oh, both reassessing the sideboard. I guess Brent is considering whether or not to put the Blood Moons back in or leave them out, or at least pretending to.
Yes. That's not a bad idea either way.
It looks like...
He's bringing them back in.
Yep. I think flipping 3 cards and pretending you're either taking them out or bringing them in probably is worth it, just for faking out your opponent.
Yeah, making them have difficult mana. Looks like Brent has brought in a Camball. It's the
Ooh,
the
Campbell.
allocator. What is his title? He's a 2/3 for 1 and a white and a black.
He is.
Each
I'm
time your
not sure
opponent
his-
casts a non-creature spell, you lose 2 life. They lose 2 life, and you gain 2 life.
Right.
That is Camball. I can't remember the rest of his title.
Very good hate bear.
Very, very good hate bear. Not one that you see played often. However, I have seen it as a 1 or a 2 of in the sideboard of some modern decks.
I believe it. I'm not sure a deck like Mardu Pyromancer can really play something like Thalia or a more traditional like Hate Bear against a control deck, so that one tends to be pretty good because it only affects your opponent, because you want to still cast all those non-creature spells.
I haven't actually seen it in action, so I'm not sure how it would do against, say, a burn opponent, where they have to answer it, and when they answer it, you get the life gain off of it from the first cast trigger. So it prevents going to the face and gives you a little bit of a insulation. Secretly
gaining you 5 life there, as your opponent has to both kill it and then they lose the life, and you gain life for the effect.
Right.
In a way, it's almost like Eidolon, except reverse, gaining you life instead of doing damage to your opponent out of the burn deck.
They were talking about it on coverage at GP Vegas today. The round 1 was a Boggles mirror.
Excellent.
And
I'm sure they looked long and hard to find that one.
Oh, yes. So post-board, they both brought in Spirit Link, which is old texting. So if you put 2 of them on your own creature, the life gain happens twice. And if you put it on your opponent's creature, it is essentially a removal spell.
Right.
And they were talking about how if you put a Spirit Link on an Eidolon of the Great Revel, you gain life every time they or you cast spells.
That's true.
So you'll still take the damage, but you'll gain off of their spells as well. So that sounded like a phenomenal answer to Eidolon of the Great Revel, which is always been a menace to me.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, 1 mana, 1 white, easy to cast, a little bit difficult to interact with, being an enchantment.
Looks like, does he have the Cabal in his opening grip there?
He does.
So we'll be able to see what kind of work it can do, most likely here against Jeskai.
So long as he has a white mana, I do not see a Plains or a fetch in his hand. It looks like Camball, Blood Moon, Lightning Bolt, and a Lingering Souls. So he's going to need to find a white mana to be able to play that Camball.
Especially against Jarod's near perfect hand here. I mean, having a Snapcaster Mage and 3 cheap interaction early game with enough lands to get you going.
I imagine if Brent doesn't commit much to the board, there will be a Bolt Snap Bolt in his future.
Ooh, is it Static Caster?
That looked like a Static Caster.
That is a beating for the Mardu Pyromancer deck. Just repeatable 1 damage to all of your creatures. With the same name, of course.
Coincidentally, most of Mardu's tokens have the same name. Not as each other, but
I prefer to name all of my spirits individually. Each one has a unique name.
So when they target one and say, "Oh, it's a Static Caster," that one, and you'll say, "Okay, George dies."
Exactly, but Bill lives.
They might disagree.
I've had a few judge calls, but usually I talk them down. So Jarod just continuing to develop his mana here, and Brent's really kind of stuck, not having that white mana. Ooh, he does have the Blood Moon, but all those basics. He's assembled the triple island.
I would expect Jarod to play his Serum Visions. I guess he disagrees.
I guess he's...
He doesn't quite have Snapcaster Mana Leak.
No.
So I'm not sure what he would be worried about necessarily. He also can't cast that Static Caster.
And keeping up the Field of Ruin here, I don't know how much that helps him. Because giving basics to Brent, especially when he doesn't have a Plains, could actually help him if he has a Blood Moon.
Right, so say he played a Blacktop Cliffs or a Blood Crypt or something, and you chose to Field of Ruin it, you could turn on the rest of his hand.
Right.
But Jarod can't actually activate that Field of Ruin unless Brent plays a non-basic, so leaving it up is not what you want to do.
He does have the Serum Visions this turn.
It's like a Glacial Fortress and possibly another Serum Visions are his decisions for the Scry.
Interestingly, Jarod might need red mana here in order to get that Snap Bolt Snap going. Although the Tormod's Crypt will definitely buy him some time to slow down on those Revelers, and the Lingering Souls when Brent finally finds that Plains.
There it is. Oh, no.
Blackcliff Cliffs.
Maybe Jarod will find a target for his Field of Ruin.
All right. Maybe Jarod's trying to get his own Plains and finds that that's worth it.
I think if Brent goes for Blood Moon, Jarod's going to fire off the Field of Ruin and get himself a Plains, which is going to work out positively for both of them, actually.
I'm not sure about this one, actually. I think Brent might have come out on top a little bit, knowing the contents of his hand.
Jarod does have a very strong hand.
He does.
But Brent couldn't cast half of his hand until
that Plains came around.
Jarod didn't have all that information, but...
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, he is now short on red mana again for that Lightning Bolt. All right. I guess everything's on, including Cryptic Command.
Jarod has access to everything, still has a Bolt and a Path and a Snapcaster with a Mana Leak and multiple Serum Visions in the graveyard.
So by passing on the turn where he had 3 mana on casting his Serum Visions and instead choosing to do it when he had 4, he actually missed an opportunity to counter the Blood Moon with the Snapcaster Mage and kind of gave that opening to Brent. So kind of some of those missed lines are come back to bite him a bit.
I'm not sure Jarod minds having the Blood Moon resolved too much at this point, considering, like you said, he does still have the ability to cast all of his spells. And
this is true.
And Brent turned on red mana for Jarod.
Creative Souls is coming through, and that Staticaster is still hidden from Brent, so... Or is it an Anger of Gods?
He actually took the Staticaster off of an Inquisition a few turns ago.
Okay.
I think that Blood Moon that turned into the Field of Ruin to get the Plains for both players ended up being a mutually beneficial exchange. And I think they were both fine with having the Blood Moon in play, too.
Some beautiful Spirits tokens as well. I wonder what their names are.
You'll have to ask Brent later.
We'll keep everyone updated on the names of the Spirit tokens.
I believe those tokens are from Unstable.
They are. I almost wish the full arts were both full art and foil, rather than having foil on one side and full art on the other.
Looks like we're just trying to check on life totals, make sure they're accurate. Brent has a young Pyromancer, but unfortunately no spells. He's thinking about casting it.
Can he flash back his Lingering Souls after the Pyromancer?
He can't. Jarod responded to the Lingering Souls by Tormod's Crypting. Well, had he responded to it casting, it would still be in the graveyard. So I guess when he first received priority after it was cast, he exiled the graveyards. Because Brent only had 1 mana and wasn't able to flash it back.
Seems like a good opportunity. And that path will be able to take out Kamal, but we'll get that drain off.
Go 9 to 21. Jarod's getting relatively low, but still has a Snapcaster and a path with a great graveyard to work with.
And I guess Brent has 1 card left in hand?
Jarod's looking at a Colonnade, possibly a Cryptic. I'm not sure what that other card is. Barely got a vision. Nope, it's a Detention Sphere. Just going to leave them both on top. Draw the Colonnade. Looking at a Lightning Bolt and a Detention Sphere on the Serum Visions.
Ooh, found his threat. That detention sphere might find its way onto the Blood Moon now with the Colonnade in play.
Jarod already has multiple answers to any threat that Brent would put down in Snapcaster Path, but he chose to leave the Lightning Bolt on top. Even though Brent's at 21, I'm not sure that's what you're looking for in this spot. I likely would have bottomed that.
I think best case scenario for the Lightning Bolt would be to knock out a Pyromancer, which Brent happens to have. However, I agree with you. I think in most situations in this matchup, I would bottom the Bolt here.
Considering Jarod knew he was drawing an answer to the Blood Moon and has 2 or more answers to a threat, I think he just needs to find more threats himself instead of being reactive.
Right. Which is always a challenge as a control player, of knowing that you have all the answers and feeling like you don't have to start getting some damage in. However, I think in this situation, you're right. Putting some pressure on that steep 21 life total.
It's not necessarily wrong. He's playing conservatively, and he definitely wants to be able to control the game. So having more answers for Brent's potential threats is important. Jarod's just letting all this go. Pyromancer come down for Brent, and then a flashback of Faithless Looting. Looks like he picked up another Pyromancer.
That Mana Leak was an option this turn for the flashbacked Faithless Looting. However, you know, still getting the token off of Pyromancer and really just kind of waiting to see what powerful interaction he comes up with.
Brent declining to search. Looks like he likely has all of his basics. After Jarod pathed his Pyromancer end of turn.
I should hope he has all of his basics. He's running more than 5. That'd be impressive in a 3-color deck. Well, 2.5 color deck, I'd say.
Brent's last card is a Bedlam Reveler, but I think he only has 1 spell in his graveyard. So that Reveler is going to cost 7 right now.
And if he has to tap out for it, that makes that Mana Leak very appealing for Jarod to snap off there.
Well, it looks like Brent drew a great card in Lingering Souls.
Ooh.
Don't want to Mana Leak that one.
Does he have Anger of the Gods in his graveyard right now?
Just a Collective Brutality on Brent's side.
For Jarod.
Jarod, he cast one earlier in the game, so I would imagine it's still there.
That could be an option, just to, you know, take out the 5 damage a turn in favor of 2 damage a turn.
Well, Brent knows about the Snapcaster, and if the Anger's there, he knows about that as well, so
right.
I wouldn't expect him to overcommit. Plus, if he exiles the Lingering Souls to get 2 more tokens, it makes his Reveler harder to cast. And right now, he has it at 6 mana, so a land would allow him to cast it. Or another spell would allow him to cast it the next turn. Plus, Jarod is at a low 7 life total.
This is definitely not a comfortable place to be. Going ahead and using the Snapcaster in combat. It's like bolting a spirit and maybe blocking the elemental.
He also can activate his Colonnade, but he's choosing not to.
Right. And no cards in hand for Jarod, so that is interesting.
I think I would have activated the Colonnade and maybe blocked the elemental token with the Snapcaster, and then just named Lightning Bolt for a potential post-combat Pyromancer.
Play. Right.
Or if not, then you can just answer the 1 damage spirit post-combat or end of turn.
That was probably worst case scenario of having that young Pyromancer into a Lingering Souls. Just huge army of tokens now. Really wanting that Snapcaster to bring back Anger of the Gods.
That's a land for Brent. Even though he exiled his Lingering Souls, he still won't be able to cast the Bedlam Reveler, as it will cost 7, and he will only have 6.
Is it a Blackcleave Cliffs anyway?
It is a Blood Crypt.
Is it Blood Crypt? There we go. Now he's activating the Colonnade here.
So it looks like he goes down to 2 here. Oh, he goes to 1, actually. Down to 1, facing 4 threats. All lethal. Jarod needs a Wrath effect or maybe a Helix.
Jeskai Control does run quite a few Wraths. We'll see. Oh,
there's a Helix.
There's a Helix. So that'll keep him in the turn, or in the game for at least one more turn.
So he can activate the Colonnade, block one of the spirits, Helix one of the others, go up to 4, take 2, and go to 2.
Ooh. Not afraid of the elemental tribal sub-theme of Mardu Pyromancer, he correctly chooses the spirit, which still need confirmation on that spirit's name, but we'll get back to you.
So Jarod's still not in a great position here, but he does have a lot of potent top decks.
Ooh, is Brent considering not attacking here? That would be huge for Jarod.
He knows Jarod doesn't have any cards in his hand, so he's trading a token for 2 damage, putting Jarod down to 2 with 2 damage still on the field. His follow-up next turn is a Bedlam Reveler at reduced cost, drawing 3 cards, gets multiple looks at either a Collective Brutality or a Lightning Bolt.
Right.
I definitely think you want to attack here.
He does decide to do it. And Colonnade, predictable block comes in with the other spirit, and Jarod goes down to 2.
That was a split card, but it didn't look like a wear and tear. Is it?
Maybe.
Not helpful if it is.
I suppose he could blow up his own detention sphere to get Blood Moon back in the game and really lock himself out.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Intangible Virtue from Brent here be able to blow up.
I think Brent drew a land for the turn, but I think it's a Cliffs, so it will come in tapped. Though he wouldn't have to discard it with his Bedlam Reveler.
He is likely to draw the land, though.
Oh, it's a
fetch
Mire.
land. Locks the token, goes to 1. Count the graveyard, making sure everything works out. All right, we're spinning the wheel. Does he have the Lightning Bolt?
He got a Brutality, which he can't
Ooh.
cast yet, and a Faithless Looting, which gives him a lot of looks next turn. And considering he's not under pressure, Jarod's going to need something good to get out of this.
Another Lightning Helix, or, I mean, he still also has a 1/1 and a 3/4 in play. So attacking with both itself is lethal.
I think he was looking for a Wrath with the ability to still hold up the Colonnade.
He has just enough mana to do that.
He did find a Cryptic Command.
Okay.
Bedlam Reveler, not usually something you want to bounce, though he could go tap draw.
If he does go tap draw, he is unfortunately dead to the
Brutality.
However, if Brent casts it main phase 1 here,
Looks like Brent's starting with a Faceless Looting. I think I saw Lingering Souls. Thoughtseize, easy discard. He goes for the land. Also, not a tough discard.
Right.
He has another Faithless Looting in hand, it looks like. I think you just go for the attack here, see what happens, go for the Brutality or another Faceless Looting post.
Alright, the Thoughtseize is going to force his hand here.
He's going to tap draw, but then he's going to get to look.
It is a wear and tear. I think
that
is there an
Thoughtseize
argument?
is supposed to resolve after the Cryptic draw, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I think they're correcting this.
Yeah, the players have figured it out on their own. Oh, it's a Colonnade. Alright, so
couldn't take it anyway.
that clears the way for that Brutality. As long as Brent
Brutality
remembers
kills him.
to cast his spells, and he does.
There you go.
Oh, and he's got it. That is a game 3. Jarod really on the back foot for most of this game, just a whole lot of lands, and not man lands either.
He had a very strong opening hand, and he had many answers for a while.
Right.
There's an Elspeth that he flipped over about 20 cards deep.
Only 20 cards
Only
deep.
20 cards. A lot of counter magic, which is not the easiest place to be when you're fighting against a resolved Pyromancer, for example,
Right.
as they'll still keep getting elementals even if you're answering 1 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
That match seemed to take up most of the round's time. As long as our game clock is accurate, we're down to just about 4 minutes left.